Captain Eli Vance stood on the roof of the Millbrook grain elevator and watched the wall go up. It wasn't much of a wall yet. Shipping containers dragged in from the rail yard with a caterpillar, school buses parked nose to tail, chain-link fencing reinforced with plywood and rebar. But it ringed the south and east approaches to town, and that was the direction the undead came from. A month ago, before the order came down, before he disobeyed orders, Vance had commanded 31 recruits at Camp Harlan, 11 miles east. Boys and girls, mostly 19 and 20 years old, 6 weeks into training that was supposed to take 14. Now he commanded the same 31. They weren't recruits anymore. They were the only thing standing between Millbrook and the metropolitan sprawl 40 miles west, which had gone quiet 11 days ago in the worst possible way. "Wall's not going to hold a real push, sir," said Sergeant Pascal as he climbed up beside him, breathing hard from the ladder. He was 26, the oldest of the group besides Vance, and the only one who'd seen anything resembling combat before this. "Not against numbers, at least," Pascal finished saying. "It doesn't need to hold against numbers," Vance said. "It needs to hold against stragglers and buy us time to see numbers coming." "And if numbers come?" Pascal asked. But Vance didn't answer that. Below them, in the town square, 18-year-old Private Ava Oakes was directing a line of townspeople, Millbrook's own. People who, 2 months ago, had been farmers and shop owners and high school teachers in stacking sandbags. Her family lived 4 streets from her, so did half the unit's families. That was the whole reason Vance had done what he'd done. The High Command's order had come through 6 days before the outbreak reached critical mass. Camp Harlan personnel to redeploy to Sector 9 metro perimeter, effective immediately. Sector 9 was the kill box around the city's east checkpoint, the place where 4 other units had already been ground down trying to hold a perimeter that didn't exist anymore. Vance had read the order twice, looked at his 31 recruits, 6 weeks of training. Half of them had never fired a weapon under stress, and made the only decision he could live with. He told his recruits a lie to give them plausible deniability. He told them orders came to fortify and protect the local town. He didn't tell them he was disobeying a direct order, and that anyone who came with him might be court-martialed, which is why he lied. All 31 had come with him to Millbrook. On day 2, the first serious incursion came at 4 in the morning, while most of the town slept behind the wall, and Vance was on watch with Private Thomas Delgado at the southeast checkpoint. A school bus turned sideways across the access road, headlights pulled and rigged to a hand-crank generator for emergency lighting. Delgado saw it first. "Movement, sir. Tree line." Vance brought up his rifle scope. 3 of them, moving with the loose, joint-heavy gait that had become the worst thing in the world to recognize. They came out of the tree line, single file, drawn, Vance had theorized, by the generator's low hum. "Hold," Vance said. "Let them clear the field before you take the shot. No need to wake the whole town." Delgado's hands were steady. That was the thing about Delgado. Quiet kid, barely said 6 words during training, but his hands didn't shake. He waited until all 3 were in the open field beyond the wall, away from any cover, and took them out at a time with a suppressed rifle Vance had stolen, if he was being honest with himself, from Camp Harlan's armory before they left. 3 shots, 3 zombies down. The night went quiet again. "That's 11 since we got here," Delgado said. "Singles and pairs," Vance replied. "That's manageable. What worries me is if it's not singles and pairs." Ava Oakes' father ran the general store on Main Street, and on day 3 he insisted on opening it for the soldiers, for the town, business as something to hold on to. Vance hadn't tried to stop him. People needed something normal to put their hands around. And this was to be the last day of his life. A delivery truck, the store's last regular supplier, apparently someone who hadn't got the message that the world had ended, came up the county road from the west. Pascal saw it from the checkpoint and called it in. Vance got to the wall as the truck was slowed by the speed bumps they put in. Through his scope, Vance could see the driver was struggling to control the wheel, head bobbing all about. The only thing keeping him from being thrown around was his seatbelt. He was sure the driver was still human, but signs of blood and torn clothes told him not for long. 30 yards out, the driver slumped for a moment, as if he had fallen asleep at the wheel. The truck slowed down, but kept moving forward. Vance's chest went cold, because the man's head snapped up a few seconds later, and inside the truck, the driver's body became a wild storm of fury, breaking loose from the seat belt. "Get ready," Vance shouted. "Shoot out the wheels and the driver." Oakes' father was nearby and had recognized the truck coming up the road. When he heard Vance give the orders to shoot, he feared his friend was going to be shot. He ran, arms waving, yelling back to Vance, something he couldn't hear. He had no idea what was in the truck. The truck had come to a rolling stop, and he swung open the driver's door. The thing inside came out fast, faster than the slow shamblers from the tree line. This one, freshly turned, still moving with the same leftover human coordination, and it was on the man before anyone could stop it. Ava screamed for her father. Pascal put the creature down with a single shot to the head, point blank, close enough that he caught some of the spray, and stood over the body, breathing hard, while Oakes' father lay on the ground, clutching his forearm, where the thing's teeth had found purchase through his sleeve. Vance had seen this before. He knew the shape of what was to come next. He looked at Ava Oakes, 19 years old, holding her soon-to-become infected father in the street, but made a compassionate decision instead. "Get him inside," he said. "Get him comfortable." Vance and Delgado followed Oakes and her father to a triage building they'd set up. When her father's wounds were treated, Vance took her outside. "Ava, do you understand what was going to happen to your father next?" "Yes," she answered. "You don't have to be the one. Let Delgado sit with him." "I'm not leaving my father," she said. So he let her stay. 2 hours later, a loud yellow and a woman's scream was followed by 2 quick shots, then a third. Vance was nearby and went to open the door when Ava came out. Looking inside, Delgado was standing, arm out, gun still pointing at the dead man. Within an hour, a small procession followed Oakes and Vance as a caterpillar pulled a cart carrying the body of her dead father toward the town graveyard. Ava didn't speak to anyone for the rest of the day. Vance let her have that. On day 4, word came from the long-range radio in the neighborhood. Fragmented, garbled, but real. A National Guard unit 40 miles south had intercepted chatter about Camp Harlan, about a captain and 31 recruits who had gone dark on a direct redeployment order. Pascal brought him the transcript himself. "They're calling it a desertion, sir. Looking for you specifically." "There's a unit." Pascal stopped for a few moments. "Just say it, Pascal." "There's a unit tasked with the locating and recovering Camp Harlan personnel. Could be days out, could be longer, given everything else going on. But it's a real order, sir, with your name on it." Vance sat with that for a while, in the courthouse that had become his command post, looking at a hand-drawn map of Millbrook's defenses pinned to the wall. Sectors, sightlines, fallback positions, all built from a month of desperate improvisation. "Are we deserters, sir?" Pascal asked. "Not you, but I am." "You were just following orders," Vance said. "We're not going to fight with them if they make it here. Is that understood? We do not kill our own. We do what we came here to do. If they find us holding a town that's still standing. With 31 soldiers, I chose to stand somewhere that mattered instead of dying in a kill box that didn't. I can live with that and what it will cost me. And one more thing, Pascal, before you leave. Don't you speak a word of this to anyone else, or we could have a mutiny on our hands. Let me speak to the men instead." "Yes, sir." On day 5, the scouting report came in from Delgado and Garcia, who'd taken the ATV out to the ridge overlooking the interstate. They came back faster than usual, and Garcia was nearly shouting before she even braked to a stop. "It's not stragglers anymore, sir," she said. "It's huge. You need to see it." Vance rode out with Pascal to the ridge. The view down into the valley toward the metro sprawl told him everything the radio chatter had been dancing around for days. The interstate, 4 lanes wide, was a slow-moving river of them. Not hundreds, thousands. A herd pushed by some shift in the city's collapse, drawn by something, sound, scent, the simple mathematics of a city finally running out of anything left to draw them inward. And moving with the patient, mindless persistence that was somehow worse than any deliberate hunt, directly toward the exit that fed onto the county road. The county road that ran straight into Millbrook. "How long do you think?" Vance said. Delgado had been timing their pace against fixed landmarks for the last mile of a drive back. "If they hold this speed, and there's no reason to think they'll slow down, 2 days, maybe less." Vance looked at the herd a while longer. Thousands, maybe more. Hidden behind the curve of the highway, hidden in numbers his binoculars couldn't resolve at this range. "We're not built to stop that, sir," Pascal said quietly beside him. "We should talk about whether the town needs to evacuate." "Evacuate to where?" Vance said. "Show me the map. Show me one direction that isn't worse than staying behind a wall." "We don't outrun this. We're going to funnel it." On day 6, they worked through the night and into the day without stopping, and Vance pulled in every able body the town had to give him. The plan was simple. They couldn't stop the herd, so they would shape where it went. Vance had Pascal and a crew of townspeople drag the burnt-out husks of 2 more delivery trucks and a school bus to funnel the county road into a single choke point half a mile out from the wall, narrow enough that the herd would be forced into a column 20 or 30 wide instead of 100. Behind that choke point, they staged a line of fuel drums, siphoned from every tank and generator in town, wired with a crude ignition system Garcia and a recruit named Jensen rigged from a car battery and a long line of speaker wire. "It's not elegant," Jensen said, sweat cutting tracks through the dust in his face. "But if it sparks when it's supposed to, that choke point becomes a fiery kill zone instead of a doorway." The defensible line behind the burn zone was the actual wall. Containers, buses, chain link, manned by every soldier with a rifle and every townsperson Vance had spent 4 weeks training on basic firearm discipline. Behind the recruits, the loose chain was set up. The plan was for half the force to shoot and the other half to reload the empty clips as they came out. At dusk, Delgado spotted the first scattered outriders of the herd, the fast ones, the ones who'd somehow outpaced the main mass, moving down the county road in the gathering dark. He easily picked them off one at a time with his rifle. "Tomorrow," Vance said. "It comes tomorrow." Nobody slept much that night. Vance walked the line twice, checking weapons, checking faces, trying to sleep on the wall, stopping longest at the ones who were the youngest. He found Pascal near the choke point at 2 a.m, running his hands over the speaker wire ignition rig for the 4th time. "Are you good, Sergeant?" "I keep thinking about Sector 9, Pascal said, wondering what happened to the units that went." "Don't," Vance said. "Whatever happened there, it's not what's going to happen here. Here, we pick the ground. That's the whole difference." Day 7. They heard it before they saw it, a low, constant moan rolling down the county road like weather, thousands of throats overlapping into something that had stopped sounding human a long time ago. Vance gave the orders at first light, walking the line one final time. "Hold fire until the checkpoint. Let them funnel. Jensen, wait for my signal on the ignition, not a second before." The herd came around the bend in the road at full daylight, and even having seen it from the ridge, even having braced for it, Vance felt something in his chest go hollow at the sight of it filling up the entire width of the road and spilling into the fields on either side, a mass that didn't end where his eyes expected it to end. The outriders hit the truck barricade first, and the funnel did its work. Forced narrow, the herd compressed into a half-mile chute toward the burn line, density building behind density, as the ones in back kept pushing forward with no concept of the bottleneck ahead of them. "Wait for it," Vance said into the radio, mostly for himself. "Wait for it." When the leading mass packed solid into the fuel drum line, he gave the word. Jensen closed the circuit. The choke point went up in a wall of fire that turned the morning orange, and the screaming, if that's what is called the sound of thousands of burning dead inside. Blinded by the fire, the zombies milled about, unable to see the path forward. The fire didn't stop the herd. Nothing the size of a miracle was going to stop a herd that side. But it slowed, broke its density, turned an unstoppable wave into staggered burning waves the defense line could actually meet. "Open up," Vance ordered, and the wall answered with everything it had. Rifles from the containers, Oakes firing in steady, controlled bursts that didn't waver even as the line in front of her thinned and surged and thinned again. Delgado's suppressed rifle no longer needed to be quiet. Pascal moving up and down the position, calling targets, plugging gaps, without ever stopping his own fire. It went on for hours. Clips and mags came out empty, were reloaded and placed ready for use. Vance lost track of ammunition counts, lost track of which sectors were holding and which were bending, aware only that the next threat and the next, and the fire still burning at the choke point, slower now, thinning the herd's numbers degree by exhausting degree. By early afternoon, what was left of the herd was scattered remnant, picking apart by a wall that had bent in 3 places but broken in none. Vance stood in the wreckage of the line as the last few stragglers fell, and the silence that followed was the loudest thing he heard all week. They had lost 2. A townsperson named Hal Granger, who insisted on fighting despite Vance's orders to fall back to the courthouse, and Private Garcia, who held a collapsing section of fence alone for 90 seconds so 3 others could retreat. Ava Oakes found him afterward, sitting against the husk of a car barricade, rifle still in his hands, face streaked with sweat and soot. "We held it," she said, needing to hear someone else say it back to her to believe it. "We held it," Vance answered. Pascal stood behind them, exhausted, blood that wasn't his on his sleeve. He looked out at the smoking field, the broken remnant of what was nearly ending them, and then back toward the town, behind the wall. Millbrook, still standing, lights starting to come on in windows as people who sheltered through the worst of it began to step back outside. "What happens now, sir?" Pascal asked. "If that recovery unit ever finds us?" Vance looked at the wall, at the line, at the 31 soldiers who followed him into a mutiny because the other option was leading them to death. "Now," Vance said, "we rebuild the wall stronger than it was yesterday, and if someone comes looking for deserters, they can see for themselves what we deserted to."